The big news, of course, is that Eric Cantor, the arguably one of the 5 most powerful men in Washington, D.C., or 6 or 8, I don't know where he is in the line of presidential succession. I think much of the cabinet gets lumped in the middle of that. John Boehner is number 3, or number 2, actually. It goes the president, the vice president, the Speaker of the House, and the vice president, of course, is the president of the Senate. I think the Senate Majority Leader. I don't remember beyond that, so I don't know where he is. But in any case, one of the most powerful, but practically speaking, regardless of the line of secession, because Eric Cantor, for example, yesterday established the House's schedule for June and removed immigration from it. He effectively killed immigration for the rest of the year. One guy. That's incredible power. One of the most powerful men in America is stepping down from that powerful seat as the House Majority Leader. He'll continue to be the congressman until January when his successor is sworn in, and there's still going to be an election between now and then. But he's no longer going to be that seat. So one of the questions that is raised, that I'm raising, is and I'm convinced it's going to be one of these guys who is part of this 2009 conspiracy meeting in the Caucus Room restaurant, which would include Paul Ryan, Kevin McCarthy, Pete Sessions, Jeb Henseling, Pete Hoekstra, or Dan Lundgren. I would bet money that one of those guys is going to end up House Majority Leader. But we'll see. Meanwhile, the Tea Party seems to have a victory, except that everybody's saying the Tea Party had nothing to do with this. The guy only took $4,000 in PAC money, this being Dave Bratt, the guy who took down Eric Cantor. Judson Phillips is the founder of Tea Party Nation, teapartynation.com. Hey, Judson, welcome back to the program.
Hey, Tom, thanks for inviting me back.
So, did you guys have anything to do with this?
Yeah, Tea Party Nation did. We endorsed Dave Bratt probably 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago. I forget the exact timeline. We've been plugging him rather relentlessly on our site. I personally have written about him in the Washington Times, on CDN, and on several other platforms that I write for. Now, unfortunately, a lot of my friends in the other national Tea Party groups did not get involved in this. Even though I was telling them, I told them for the last month or so, this is going to happen. And I guess I should call them up and say, oh, ye of little faith.
I guess, or yeah. Judson, it's interesting because the principal media narrative is that Eric Cantor spent $5.2 million on this race, most of it on ads promoting himself, but toward the end, ads specifically trashing Dave Bratt. Dave Bratt raised $200,000 and spent $120,000, which is a fraction of $5.2 million, and that this is a real David versus Goliath story. What gets left out of that media narrative is stuff like what you just said, that Dave Bratt had Laura Ingraham behind him, relentlessly pounding Eric Cantor on the radio. In every little town in Virginia has got a right-wing radio station in it, and all the big ones do as well. No progressive stations, but they all have conservative stations. That Mark Levin did so. That both of them take money from the Koch brothers or via Koch brothers, Koch brother money via Koch brother organizations. And the Koch brothers, of course, are big funders of the Tea Party. And then, groups like Tea Party Nation were supportive of this guy. Why do you think the media is so eager to ignore your contribution, Laura's, Mark's, and just talk about it like, David versus Goliath?
Well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, it flies in the face of the media narrative. As you like to put it, the corporate media, and I kind of like that expression, but it flies in the face of the corporate media story that the Tea Party is dead. But second of all, it, to be bluntly honest, plays better. The real story, which I think is phenomenally even much better, but you can't really reduce it into a 30-second soundbite or a headline, but I'll give it to you the thumbnail version of it. You literally had the perfect storm. You had an insurgent candidate who ran an absolutely brilliant campaign versus an arrogant, entrenched Washington insider who thought he could just put his thumb down and just automatically make it happen.
Right.
And by the way, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this to you. I'm in the 7th District. I voted for Dave Bratt.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I'm active in politics here in the district, so I'm down on the ground. That's one of the reasons I was able to tell my friends a month ago, this is going to happen. And Bratt's campaign was absolutely brilliant. And if we can...
How so? What did they do that was brilliant?
Number one, they went... as far as I know, Dave Bratt did not air a single TV ad. If he did, I missed it.
But I've got his flyer. I got the thing that, the door knocker thing that went around. Yeah. And it looks pretty good.
Yeah. But what he did, he just was all over social media. I mean, literally, every time I fired Facebook up, there was some type of social media input from Dave Bratt.
Oh, interesting.
They had Eric Cantor, Your Nose is Growing Longer, which was a beautiful narrative because the other half of the story is how bad Eric Cantor's campaign was. I mean, literally, it's probably... I mean, I've been a political junkie since I was 13 years old when I was putting out yard signs for Richard Nixon in 1972, just to date myself here. And I've never seen a political campaign run so badly. I mean, it's literally like the guy who finds a flaming bag of dog manure on his front porch and he tries to stomp it out. And, every time he stomps it, he just gets it worse.
Right.
I mean, it was so bad. But here's kind of the cool thing. I think you're seeing the future of campaigning evolve right now because Eric Cantor spent, between his campaign and the special interest groups that came in with independent expenditures, there's probably at least a couple $1 million in the Richmond market on pro-Cantor ads.
Right.
And they did no good. If anything, they moved the needle backwards. They helped Dave Bratt.
Now, how do you account for the fact that you had equally indignant Tea Party opposition to both Mitch McConnell and Lindsey Graham, who are both the ultimate Washington insiders? Lindsey Graham unabashedly and unapologetically supports to this day comprehensive immigration reform. And yet Lindsey Graham wiped the slate. I mean, 60%. He wiped out all the Tea Party challengers. And Mitch McConnell, handily beat the guy who was challenging him in Kentucky. What's the difference?
All right, real quick, to start with McConnell. Matt Bevin, who was his challenger, was not a Tea Party candidate. You had a Kentucky Tea Party that supported him. You had one national Tea Party group that supported him. You had two national Tea Party groups, including mine, that endorsed McConnell, and then one that sat out of it.
Oh, really? So there wasn't the clear differentiation in that case.
Yeah, the narrative is just wrong.
Okay, what about Lindsey Graham? I mean, everybody in the Tea Party hates Lindsey Graham, don't they?
We hate him. To use the old expression, we hate him with a purple passion. I never saw a good candidate down in South Carolina.
Yeah.
And one thing about Lindsey Graham, the guy's not married, and as one Washington friend of mine told me, the guy is just relentless. He spends 24/7, and all he does is think about what he's going to have to do to get reelected. I think he took the hint in 2010 and 2012 and got ready a long time in front of everybody else. And I think that's one of the reasons.
So he just worked really, really hard, which is, Eric Cantor instead spent $150,000 on steak dinners with lobbyists here in Washington, D.C., while Lindsey Graham was back in the state campaigning, basically.
Yeah, exactly. And, here's the thing. Cantor's district, people were just complaining. The only time they ever saw Cantor was on the Sunday news shows. He wouldn't do town hall meetings. He wouldn't debate Dave Bratt. He wouldn't come down here for events. The only time I've seen him in the district in the 2 years I've lived here was at the convention where he was booed off the stage.
Whoa. Okay, a lot of fascinating insights. Judson Phillips, the founder of Tea Party Nation, the website teapartynation.com. Judson, it's always interesting talking with you. Thanks for dropping by.
Hey, Tom, thank you again for having me. It's always a blast being on your show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. We'll be back.